Hello, this is BlueStar, Defender of Equestria, and this is my Afterthought review slash aftermath video of Daring Doubt. This sure changes things. Oh, and by the way, I'm recording this video this way because I'm starting to remember why I used to record the Afterthought reviews this way, so... Before I get going, I definitely have to say, if you haven't seen this episode, definitely don't watch this video until you do, because there's definitely some big things in this episode, so... Last chance! You have been warned. You have now entered the free fire zone. So this video is going to be kind of two things. It's going to be an afterthought review of the episode, but it's also going to be basically an analysis of sort of Daring Do and Awizodal and Cabaleron and how this episode really changes things. This almost paints Daring Do as a villain, so... I'm sure some people are not going to be happy about that, and I do have to say is that, yeah, this definitely changes Daring Do, and all the previous Daring Do episodes. It definitely gives us all something to think about. But let's start off with the afterthought review of the episode itself. This episode is still kind of tiresome, but at the same time, I still kind of like it. Cabaleron's laying it on kind of thick sometimes, and it's also kind of obvious that he's just trying to be nice so that Fluttershy won't catch on. It's an interesting thought. Does Fluttershy really know what's going on, or is she just giving him the benefit of the doubt so that he can tell his side of the story? I think a little of both. I don't think Fluttershy is completely oblivious to what's going on, but at the same time, I think she really is trying really hard to be supportive and understanding and giving these ponies a chance, and ultimately that all works out, and that's great. She's actually nice to us. No one's been nice to us before. That obviously pays off later in the episode where it's like, yeah, it started off, it's like, yeah, we were totally using you, but, you know, we actually appreciate your friendship now, so yay! The magic of friendship prevails once again. I like that. We've definitely not seen things from Cabaleron's side or Awizodal's side. It was definitely interesting, and definitely our world was rocked when we learned the truth about Awizodal. But we haven't really gotten to hear from their point of view very much. But at the same time, those things are actually kind of there. From the very beginning, we've known that Cabaleron has wanted to team up with Daring Do, and she basically said no. And so, you could argue at that point his only path was to be evil. But at the same time, knowing that Cabaleron was still in it for the money, teaming up with Daring Do probably wouldn't have worked out anyway. But even so, looking back on it, Daring Do has never been very nice to Cabaleron. Or even Rainbow Dash at the very beginning. Looking at Daring Dote even just a little bit, all the way back in season 4, she was not very nice to Rainbow Dash. I have to say that, yeah, at first, Daring Do thinks that Rainbow Dash is just an obsessed fan who just wants to go along with her own adventure, who's probably gonna get in the way and get hurt. Of course, this was part of the lesson that Daring Do had to learn, was that, you know what, yeah, she's capable of doing this stuff by herself, but sometimes even she needs help, and that having help is good. But even so, you could argue that Daring Do has, from the very beginning, not been very nice to ponies. Daring Do, obviously, like every pony, is not perfect. She's got her problems, she's got her flaws. So Dr. Cabaleron does have a point. It's like, do you think that everything in her books is true? And the answer to the question is no. While it is based on events, it obviously is a little bit of fiction. She, you know, amped things up a little bit, changed this, changed that. Yeah, I really wasn't mean to Cabaleron, but you know what? Actually, I was, so... That's why this lesson was definitely so important to hear both sides of the story, because if you only hear one side of the story, you're only hearing one side of the story. Sometimes maybe the other side has a legitimate point, and that once you hear that point, that, you know what, maybe you're right, maybe Daring Do's not so great after all. And that's what makes all this difficult. They're kind of almost painting Daring Do as a villain, because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, she's stealing these artifacts, along with Cabaleron, from this valley, and Awizodal's been just trying to protect them all this time, so they were kind of both villains, and Awizodal was actually the good guy, so, that pretty much destroys Daring Do. And I'll go back and watch the previous Daring Do episodes. That's definitely going to change the way that I look at them. But however, does this really mean that Daring Do is a villain? No, of course not. She just simply didn't know the full story, and if she had, she probably wouldn't have become Daring Do to begin with. Unfortunately speaking, what got her started being Daring Do to begin with? But it's kind of irrelevant because the series is coming to an end, and this is basically how they're wrapping up Daring Do, so, And yeah, I think this is going to be quite controversial. Some people are not going to be happy with this. I'm a little disappointed with it too. But at the same time, I'm also kind of glad that, all sides end up basically being friends. We're not going to be mortal enemies forever. The artifacts are safe, everything's good, and it does look like that even though they were upstaged by Aoizotl, they're still going to be able to make a career as being writers. Now they've had to give up basically being adventure ponies. Are they just going to, drop the act? Being Daring Do was fun, but you know what? I have to stop dealing the artifacts now, so yeah, I'm Daring Do! Yeah! Cool! Yeah, probably not. It would be interesting to see what kind of happens next for them, but of course with the series coming to an end, we're not, so Overall, how do I feel about this? I'm a little disappointed, but at the same time, I really appreciate this lesson. I thought it was definitely very important. The long story short is, I think this is a very valuable lesson, one that we have definitely been missing and we desperately need. Is that, yeah, we all have to be listening to both sides of the story, not jump to conclusions, and just hear the other side, and then make up our minds who's right, who's wrong, and then decide what to do accordingly. But still, yeah, I'm a little disappointed by this, because yeah, it's always difficult when you basically make the villain no longer a villain. In these adventure stories, you want the villain to be defeated. You want to be like, no, Aoizotl, you will not win, roar! It's like, go Daring Do! But yeah, now it's this way, it's gonna make this hard, but thinking about this more, is that characters like Daring Do, Indiana Jones, and Lara Croft, all these Tomb Raider characters are a little questionable. At the end of the day, they're breaking into these old tombs and stealing things. Even if the argument is, oh, we're going to protect them, well, who says that they're not better off in these tombs of all these traps than sitting in a museum or where they could just simply be stolen? And it does remind me of the situation at the beginning of The Last Crusade. Even if you agree with Indy's motives of like, oh, it belongs in a museum, at the end of the day, this comes down to theft. Whether you like it or not, this artifact was found by this guy, was paid for by this guy, he bought it legitimately, it's his, and for Indy to go and basically break into his place or whatever and take it is theft. This is very morally ambiguous, and the law would definitely not be on his side. And in fact, at the beginning of the movie, it wasn't. The only reason that they don't press charges is like, hey kid, just give it back and we won't press charges. So after thinking about that, yeah, these kind of characters are kind of questionable, and it was kind of in some ways a good sub-point that, yeah, they're trying to call those characters out a little bit. But at the same time, all these kind of characters are these fun adventure characters. There's stuff that we wish we could do but can't. I remember loving the Indiana Jones movies. They were just these great adventure stories. It's like the stuff that, nobody really does and nobody probably will ever do again, or probably never did to begin with, so they're a big fantasy of stuff that we'd like to be able to do, but just simply can't, and it was definitely sad to see those stories come to an end. But at the same time, I'm also glad that this episode kind of is like, well, it's like these stories are fun, but when you think about it, it's a little morally questionable what these characters are doing. But even so, I think that this episode was a really good episode, and I really did like this episode, and even though it's going to be controversial if this was the right way to, conclude Daring Do or not, I really liked the lesson it was trying to teach, and it was so much fun watching all the hedge ponies being like, she's actually being nice to us, and seeing the magic of friendship prevail once again, so roar! So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing, and until next time, this is Blue Star. Stay strong, and pony on. Blue Star out.